Topic 4 of Module 1 of the GCSE is called Cumulative Frequency Graphs. Now, cumulative frequency means added up total, or the total so far. So once again, we've got our data about the amount of money people have in their pockets. 4 people had between 0 and $10, 6 people had between $10 and $20, 10 people had between $20 and $30, and so on. So we're going to make a column called cumulative frequency, which is basically going to be the total so far. So the first group, 4 people so far, plus an extra 6 people in the next group makes 10 people so far, plus another 10 makes 20 so far, plus another 9 makes 29 so far, plus another 3 makes 32 so far, plus the last 2 makes 34 people so far. So that tells us that 4 people have up to $10, 10 people have up to $20, so that could be anything from 0 to 20. 20 people have up to $30, 29 people have up to $40, 32 people have somewhere up to $50, and then all 34 people have something from 0 up to $100. So we're going to, oh yes, and of course nobody has less than $0. So we're going to make a graph of that. And that graph is going to have 0, 0 on to represent that no people and no dollars are a pair. It's going to have 10, 4 on it to represent that $10 is an amount of money that 4 people have up to. It's going to have 20, 10 on it to represent that $20 is an amount of money that 10 people have up to. And then so on like that for each group. And it's going to tell you how many people have up to that certain amount of dollars. So just write that down. And then we're going to make the actual graph. So the amount of money on the horizontal axis, and then the cumulative frequency, the total so far, on the vertical axis. The cumulative frequency always goes on the vertical axis. So plotting those points, and then the idea is to try and get a smooth curve through them. It's always a good idea to have your hand inside the curve when you're drawing it. So put your hand there to draw that bit of the curve, and then maybe turn the paper around, put your hand there, because it's easier to turn your hand that way. Okay, so at the top of the graph is the 34th person, so that's the 100% mark. In the middle of the graph is the 17th person. Now, in spite of what we said previously when we were working at the median as n plus 1 over 2, so strictly speaking the median should be person number 17 and a half, but for a graph like this it's accepted you can just divide by 2, so 50%, 17th person, and that corresponds to $27. So that's telling us that half the people have below $27 and half the people have above $27. So from this graph we can estimate that the median is about $27. Similarly, 25%, well I've just written there median 50% value about $27, and then 25%. Well, 25% of 34 is 8.5, so a quarter of 34 is 8.5 in other words, and that corresponds to $18. So that tells us that 25% of the people have below $18, and then the other 75% at the top have above $18. So the 25% value is $18, the value that's 25% of the way up the group. That's also called the lower quartile. Now, similarly at the top, 75% of 34 people, or 3/4 of 34 people, makes 25.5. So 3/4 of the way up the group, or 75% of the way up the group, is person number 25.5. And that person from the graph has about $35.50, $35.50. So that's also called the upper quartile. The value that's 75% of the way up is $35.50. So 75% of the people have below $35.50, and then the top 25 people have above that. So these are called the quartiles because it splits the group into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So 4 quarters, if you like. And they're also known as Q1, Q2 and Q3. Quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3. So 3 values that split the group up into 4 sections. And so that's using the cumulative frequency graph to estimate the median and the quartiles. Again, it's only an estimate because we don't know the exact values, and there probably isn't anyone with exactly $35.50, but it's just a good estimate from the information we have of how the data are split up. So just write that all down and move on. So we can use the quartiles to calculate something called the interquartile range. So that was the information we had again. The lower quartile was 18, the upper quartile was 35.50, and the interquartile range is just the difference between the two of those. So Q3 minus Q1, 35.50 minus 18 is $17.50. So the interquartile range is how far it is from the top quarter to the bottom quarter of the data. And in this case it's $17.50 from the top quarter of the people, the top 25%, down to the bottom quarter, the bottom 25%. And you use that to measure how spread out a set of data is. The higher the interquartile range, the more spread out the values are. So just write that down. So for example, if I give everybody in the group a test and everybody gets 72%, then the top quartile will be 72 and the bottom quartile will be 72, and the interquartile range will be 72 minus 72, which will be nothing because the test results aren't very spread out. But if I give everybody a test and some people get 100 and some people get 0 and all of the marks are spread out, then the interquartile range will be a much bigger number. So there should be some questions on that for you to try.